One of the biggest concerns that most parents that I talk with have is regarding the internet. Because there are no strict guidelines on how and when you should allow kids to use the internet. We basically didn't have it 50 years ago, right? Like, my grandma didn't educate me on how to use the internet. In fact, she didn't know herself. And so this is a new technology that comes with many dangers. And some of the dangers are obvious. You have scammers, you have stalkers, you have predators. But other dangers aren't so obvious because you can have university professors and students, especially of the left-leaning variety. And on this channel, as I read the news every single day, I realized a lot of horror stories where you have a kid that grows up in a wealthy family, that grows up in a loving household where both mom and dad are trying to provide the best for them, but they get trapped in what appears to be like a communist cult or a social justice activism cult, and then they end up in prison. So you have mommy and daddy saving a lot of money in order to put little Billy through university, only to find out that now little Billy is unemployable because they have a criminal record. One of the worst horror stories that I remember, and I covered this, I think it was like 6 years ago, it was about a girl that grew up in a very prestigious family, and her dad managed to provide her everything. She had her own apartment, she had a job working at her dad, she had a car bought for her. Literally, she was set up for life. Like, all she had to do is to find a significant other, get married, and then have a life that most people dream of having. But unfortunately, she ended up befriending a couple of Antifa friends, and her dad managed to find her on Facebook as she was burning an American flag. Now, her dad was a war veteran and didn't really understand why her daughter was like this, but he genuinely loved the concept of free speech and what America stands for. And so, instead of punishing her, he just wanted to have a debate with her. He just wanted to ask her, like, why is it that you're behaving like this? Why are you burning the American flag? Like, I'm not telling you not to do it, but I'm asking you if you can explain it to me. And what she did is she called her dad a fascist and said that there's no platform for fascists. These were the talking points at the time. The world was infested with third-wave feminism, and that's how they dealt with criticism. They would just block and mute. And this is the point where the dad decides that enough is enough. So he fires his daughter from the business, tells her that he has to return his car, and on top of that, stops providing money for her. And of course, she goes on social media, says that this is oppression, this is the patriarchy cracking down on strong, independent women, the whole thing. Tries to insult her dad, tries to call him a misogynist, like that was the label at the time that if you received, you were unemployable. But luckily, people actually know the truth, like they hear the other side of the dad's story, and they understand the situation. And then she ends up living with 5 or 6 other comrades in a house, basically squatting. Like her entire life is pretty much ruined by the decisions that she made. And again, this is the companionship that she decided to keep in. Like, she had everything in life, but due to poor decisions, she ended up being miserable. I don't know what happened with her afterwards, but it's what the university professors can do to a young person, because all of those comrades, all of those Antifa, like, were part of a university campus where they got radicalized, and then they got radicalized even further on the internet, on Tumblr. And so, again, like, there is no concept of the danger that university professors that have an agenda in order to split society pose on young, impressionable adults. I don't want to call them children because they are over the age of 18, and even if they're 16 or so, they still should know better. Like, I knew better when I was 16, so I don't think that's the fair assessment to say, oh, they're kids as if they don't have any moral agency. No, they do, but they're very impressionable. And so, certain activists, university professors can take advantage and use these people like a virus to destabilize society. And this is not a metaphor that I'm using. This is from one of their published papers. They're basically stating that the purpose of social studies, like feminism, grievance studies, social justice, all of these put together, we call them woke now. The purpose is to use the student as a virus, to indoctrinate the student so that when he goes to a workplace, he brings in the ideology. The purpose of education is not to enrich the student, is not to empower the student, is not to make the student a pillar of the community. It's to make him into a destabilizing force of destroying society. Again, these are their own published papers. This is what they put up in their peer review. This is what they're proud of. And there's many such cases. Another one is with the Kavanaugh hearings. Most of you probably remember how you had university students breaking into the hearings, trying to stop Kavanaugh from becoming a judge on the Supreme Court. And there was a video that I saw on Twitter. I'm upset that I didn't save it, but like it's going to haunt me forever because it shows the damage that these university professors are doing. You had a couple of young girls dressed in the Handmaid's Tale outfits. And you had a university professor that was old. I think he was like within his 60s or so. Had white hair. And he was teaching them how to chant. And he was like, rah, 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 rah. And all the women were like, like they were rehearsing. Right? Like nothing was grassroots. Nothing was natural. Like all of this was done on taxpayer money because like the government is funding these universities in order to then protest against Kavanaugh. And so it ended up with like students getting arrested. Hundreds of them. And for what? Right? Like for what? Try to put yourself into the shoes of those parents. Like you work hard in order to make sure that your kid goes to university. And as I mentioned before, they end up with a criminal record. Isn't that disturbing? Isn't that awful? And the people responsible, they're not the ones that are getting arrested. Like the university professors were sitting in the back. They were too important to be up front. They weren't the ones banging at the doors. They weren't the ones breaking in to the Kavanaugh hearings. No, they were just sitting at the back, encouraging the students to do it. And the reason I made this video is because today I found this on Reddit. Apparently, woman is terrified because daughter is being prosecuted, for felony vandalism to vehicles in California. What else can be done and who can we contact? My daughter, African-American, 18 years old. I love the fact that they need to mention the identity. It's like PhD, you know, is the way the Americans do it, right? Like here in Europe, we would say my daughter, university student studying at, you know, but in America, it's my daughter, genetics. Was involved in a protest at the Tesla dealership. After the protest, she apparently vandalized spray paint plus physical damage to a Tesla Cybertruck and was caught on Sentry mode. How clear are these cameras? She told her lawyer and I that she was coaxed by her friends to do it. I'm scared for her and want her to have the best possible future, but I'm afraid she is going to get a harsh sentence if found guilty, which her lawyer said is highly likely given the evidence. Will she be expelled from school? Will she be able to get a job? Anyone have any advice for her? It's too late. It's too late. I can see how the woman is thinking. Like, I can see from her point of view, right? Like, she didn't go to the dealership. She didn't know her daughter is doing that. But such is life. And, you know, like, the problem should be to figure out which of her friends group are, and then go up the ladder until you find like the person that's genuinely responsible and maximum punishment for that person. I'm willing to bet it's either like an activist, the head of an NGO, or some university professor. Like that is the person that should get like the maximum sentencing, the maximum punishment. But unfortunately, you know, that's not going to happen. We're not going to have that investigation. But those people are the genuine dangers for society because, again, put yourself into the shoes of this mother. Like, no matter how good of a parent you are, no matter what you do, there's always the possibility that your kid is going to start hanging around the nasty circles of friends. Going to hang around with communists, they're going to hang around with agitators, and then they're going to pull something like this, you know? And in the heat of the moment, they probably don't realize that what they're doing is, they realize it's illegal, but they don't realize the severity of the crime. Right? Because most people don't know. It's like, okay, if you go into a dealership and you spray a Tesla and break a window, like how many years do you get in prison? Like, most people don't know the answer to that. They will say, well, maybe you get a fine, or maybe you get 1 to 2 years. No, it's a lot more. Most people don't know, right? And so they should be punished. I'm not saying they shouldn't. But the people that instigate this, the people that cause this, should get the maximum punishment possible. But unfortunately, as I mentioned before, it's not going to happen. So the only thing we can do as parents is to make sure that, well, we know the type of people that our kids are hanging up with. And you need to indoctrinate your kids. Sorry, the word is incorrect. Educate. You need to educate your kids at a very early age to understand the dangers of internet, to understand the dangers of keeping friends like this, and to understand the dangers of doing property damage, the importance of property, the importance of the American Constitution, the importance of the rule of law, so that you give them a better chance in life. Because otherwise, no matter how much of an education they have, no matter how bright the future, they can always end up with a group like this, and then it's too late. Let me know what you guys think, though, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.